Hey, thanks for clicking on one of our videos. If you're a Baylor fan, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell if you want to join us for a live stream soon. This is Please Bear With Me. Enjoy. I want to hear from all three of you on this because I think what Shehan just said is great, because I think what is evident to me is that Dave Aranda has built a culture that a specific kind of person, a specific kind of player want to be a part of. There are really, really high caliber football players who prefer whatever Dave Aranda is doing inside the building over other places. I also think it's evident that Dave Aranda multiple times now has been quick to admit when something's not working and pivot to do something that is working. And all of that is a credit to him. However, I will talk more about this when we bring the show back in full in August. I am of the opinion, and maybe I've got rose-colored glasses on. I'll let you guys correct me. I think he's had enough time. I think there's been enough ups and downs. I think this returning roster is talented enough. If Baylor is not in the Big 12 championship discussion, I'm not saying we have to win it this season, although I certainly would like to. If Baylor is not one of the 3 or 4 teams at the top of the conference in November, in my opinion, I think you start asking, I don't know if you say, it's hot seat, but I think you really investigate and start asking questions about this program moving forward and how long you hold on to Dave Aranda. I want to know from all three of you guys, where do you stand personally, in your opinion, on Dave Aranda, and what should the expectation be for this team in 25, and how does that affect Aranda's status moving forward?
No, I mean, I'll jump in first. Here's the reality, is that Dave Aranda led Baylor's greatest team by record of all time. He won a Sugar Bowl, went 12-2. He also had 2 losing seasons in 3 years, or 3 and 4 years, in fact. So, you've seen both sides of this thing. And what's kind of been messaged publicly, which I think is fair, is he took over at a bizarre time in history of college football, between the pandemic, between the transfer portal, between NIL, and so some of this stuff is just stuff that was, going to happen to some extent. Well, I think in 25, we're starting to age past that, right? We've got 4 years of NIL. We've got, 6-7 years of the true transfer portal. We've got 5 years since COVID. We're finally getting to the point where pandemic seniors are starting to age out. I do think that this season especially is going to be kind of the benchmark of what is this program right now under Dave Aranda. Now, I think that you talk to anybody in the building and people are excited about him. Like a lot of people kind of got this idea that the reason he was back in 24 was simply because of high buyout. We couldn't afford, it really wasn't that, right? People in that building believe in Dave Aranda, but you have to have a level of consistency in this program that we just have not seen during the first couple of years. So I am very much optimistic about Dave Aranda in 2025 and beyond, but I'd agree, right? If they go 7-5 this year, which would not be a bad season, but would not, to me, be a good enough season, I don't think that's good enough. And I think that especially when you look at the second half of the schedule, which is pretty manageable, I agree. I think that the first 3 or 4 games are what they are, right? You play a lot of teams that were in and around the playoff. But I think that if you are not sitting there in November with a chance to get to 10 wins, this is a culmination roster. I think that would tell you something about your season.
Well, you hit the head on the nail on the head when you talked about consistency. I think this is the first season that we have both coordinators coming back under Aranda. And so that tells you a lot about what really has gone on. And I know Scotty was like, he's quick to make decisions. I don't think he has been quick to make decisions. I think he's kind of let the decisions play out, and we've kind of suffered through some bad Grimes calls, bad defensive calls, and they're like, man, why can't we just fix this? And so this is the first year where the offensive coordinator stays the same and defensive coordinator stays the same. So I'm looking for Aranda to take it to another level. Aranda and staff. Now, what I will say is we were in a conversation last November for a Big 12 championship game, even, despite starting off very poorly in out-of-conference play. BYU wasn't a conference game for us last year, so it didn't hurt us there. But we were there. We needed some outside help, and I'm sure that's how the Big 12 will be moving forward. But what I really want to see is if Dave Aranda can fix this defense. because at the end of the day, that's his brainchild. And if that doesn't get right, nothing else matters. I think we have one more year with Jake, regardless of if he's great or bad. I think we have one more year with him. And then we got to figure out if Dave Aranda can win and put together a very solid defense. And if we can't do that, then I think it's a telltale, because you lose a bunch of talent if we can't, and 2026 looks dark and gloomy. And it's not very many options out there for any other coaches, regardless if we got to buy out or not. We got to win now, and we're no longer building at Baylor. We got to put all this to test and hopefully get out there and start fast this season.
And to the point about the defense too, like you talk about, being in the discussion here, looking to win 10 games this season. And it could be a case where, you're whatever, 9 or 8-3 going into the final week of the season with a chance to go to the Big 12 championship, because this conference is so damn weird. And then you lose and you're 8-4. And then you look and the defense wasn't as good as you thought it was going to be. And you were in the discussion till the end, but then you're playing for the Texas Bowl again. And that's not going to be good enough this season. You just have too much coming back. And to the point about the coordinators, it's a great one. Because I'll take from another sport here. I look at my favorite hockey team the GM is about to pick his 4th head coach. That's not how this is supposed to work. And with Dave Aranda, it's like, okay, you're going to go to offensive coordinator number 4 because it's somebody else's problem, or defensive coordinator number 3 or 4 because you were one of them. That is a good point of hey, you've got the pieces here. Mack Rhodes got to be thinking, we gave you the opportunity. We gave you the money that Baylor's been okay with, right? And has done reasonably well with for a school that size. We've gotten you, we've paid your assistants very, very handsomely. We've brought in the people that you want here. It's time to put it together. And maybe that is harsh to some people, but I think with the season you had last year and what you've got coming back, a lot of teams in the country would kill to bring back their should have been all conference quarterback and their all conference running back. So many teams would love to have that. It's like, you've got to put your money where your mouth is here. And again, at some schools, that's a national championship. At Baylor, that is being in the mix for the Big 12 championship, a wild league at the end of the season. So a lot of people did look at this as a 1 year. Hey, if Dave Aranda gets to a bowl game, we're all good. I think I and some other people were looking at it of okay, 2 years. Because if they fall flat on their face, they go 4-8, 3-9 again, then we're done. There's no question about it. He doesn't even make it through the season. I think if the wheels fall off, he doesn't even make it through the season. So yeah, it is a make or break year for Dave Aranda, which it might seem harsh, but that's the business we're in. He's one game over 500.
That's the reality of college sports. These guys are getting paid millions of dollars. Athletes are getting paid. You have to produce. I remember when first football game, first football practice, my 7th grade coach comes in and he cusses us out. Felt like we all first heard our first curse word. And he says, this room has a ton of potential, but potential gets me fired. And so we talked about some of the potential of the transfers that are coming in and returning some of these great guys that we went 3 for 3 with, bringing back. At the end of the day, that's a ton of potential. If Dave Aranda and staff cannot get them to produce, all of this is a moot point.
Yeah, and I made the comparison, right, to 2012, where it's like this is this setup here. I think another example would be like 2018, right, where you have the miserable season, you come back, you look really good, you bring a lot back the next year. Well, if Baylor goes 5-7 in 2019, and nobody's happy with that, right? Nobody cares that 2018 looked pretty interesting at the end.
Matt Rule's not getting hired away at that point.
He's not getting NFL jobs, right?
Matt Rule is going to get hired away. He's a salesman. But anyway, that's
we don't need to have that discussion right now. But it's like this is allowed to be a setup season if it sets up something, right? But if this is peak, the reality is starting 2-4 in your peak season, that's not what you can be doing. And again, everybody on the staff knows that. Everybody on the roster understands what they have this year. And again, when you are so early too in a new system of the playoff, in a new conference that just completely changed last year, there are opportunities to set the expectation of what you will be in that league. Baylor was one of the biggest recipients of that back, whenever Terrance was playing, right? 2011, 12, 13, the Big 12 changes, and Baylor established themselves as one of the programs in the new Big 12. The same thing, to make a comparison, right? Texas Tech was kind of the opposite. Texas Tech had a really great 2000s. They have a miserable start to the 2010s, and that sets expectation there. You see them putting so much into this moment because they know how much it costs them. So I think that if you can't come through and be in the 9-10 win conversation and be right there in the Big 12 race, I think you also should finish the year ranked. If you can't do that in a culmination year, that's a big problem. I don't think it means he'll be fired necessarily, nor should it. And we shouldn't be having certainly a conversation about that anywhere near this early. But like expectations are real, and having a setup year isn't the same as having a culmination year.